this weekend. UFC Fight Night, Allen versus Craig, going down at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. Here we go. Before we talk about the 5 fights that we're going to talk about from this Fight Night card, are there any other real quick fights or fighters that you guys want to quickly spotlight for our listeners and viewers?
Not for me, to be honest. We're
Like,
going
fuck
long,
everybody else.
and I think it's pretty weak. Like, there's some decent names, but they're fighting like debutantes. So yeah, I don't need to.
Omar, anything? No?
Yeah, it was just the Christian Leroy Duncan was the one that caught me off guard. I didn't realize he was fighting on this card. I feel like he had a little bit of a following leading up into that Petrosian fight, but he lost, so maybe not.
Okay.
Anymore.
Go for it, Mike.
Okay. First one on deck that we have here is Jonathan Pearce versus Joanderson Brito. Pearce, JSP, the 31-year-old out of Johnson City, Tennessee. He's 14-4 as a pro with 9 knockouts on his record. He's on a 5-fight win streak. He's 1-5 in the UFC thus far. And he will be standing across from UD Darren Elkins pretty convincingly. Joanderson Brito is the 28-year-old out of Brazil. He's 15-3 with 1 draw, 13 finishes on a 3-fight win streak, most recently knocking out Weston Wilson back in July of this year. I will go first. I think this is a very interesting fight. Without knowing the odds from Mark, I would guess that Brito might be favored. I'm not sure. That being said, I was very, very impressed by Pearce's last performance. I'm going to roll with him. I'm going to say he takes another one by UD. I think that he is a giant for the weight class at 5'11". And I think he also bullies who is the much smaller Brito. Give me JSP by decision. Mark?
All right, so you're right about it being close, but you were wrong about the way it is. Jonathan Pearce is favored. He's minus 130. Joanderson Brito is plus 110. So very tight. As you alluded to, 4 inches of height for Pearce, but actually 1 inch of reach for Brito. He's very long.
Oh, funny.
This is one of those fights that you love to see. You have one guy who is just a technically sound winner that guys have struggled to deal with. And then you have another guy who is a wild fight-ending killer. And that's what this is in Pearce and Brito. Pearce has looked fantastic. His only UFC loss was up at 155. He's 5-0 at featherweight since dropping down. His striking has been on point. His wrestling's been hard to deter. He's finished 3 of 5. And then you got Brito, who can finish a fight from anywhere. You know, he'll tap you. If you let him touch you on the feet, you may crumble. All he needs is a moment to swing this thing. And I'm very torn because I think Brito is easily the best fighter Pearce has fought in the UFC thus far. But I also know Brito just lost to Bill Algeo, which is not so dissimilar of a matchup to Jonathan Pearce. But I'm going to side with the man who can find a finish anywhere. I'll say Pearce is winning the fight, and then he isn't. I will go Joanderson Brito, round 2, TKO.
Okay, Omar.
I'm kind of in the same boat, to be honest. The Bill Algeo, I don't know. Bill Algeo is just such an active fighter, such a pressure fighter, and such an unorthodox fighter that while Jonathan Pearce has shades of it, I think the fact that it's not Bill Algeo will make a big difference here. Joanderson Brito carries a lot of finishing power behind him in such a small little package. And the reality is that I think if it goes to decision, I think he loses it. I don't think he wins a decision against Jonathan Pearce, but I do think he's going to catch him, and he's going to catch him early. The man fights in a way where you imagine he doesn't think that there is a second or third round at all. So I'm going to go with Joanderson Brito here. First round KO.
Mike, what'd you say? You said Pearce UD?
Yep.
Nice.
Okay, let's move on to the women's strawweight division with Luana Pinheiro taking on Amanda Ribas. So Pinheiro, the 30-year-old fighting out of Brazil, obviously, is 11-1 as a pro. Quick note, she will be fighting on her birthday. She turns 31 this Saturday. 11-1 as a pro with 7 finishes, 5 of those submissions. She has been on an absolute tear. She's on a 9-fight win streak coming into this weekend. She's obviously undefeated thus far in the UFC after winning on Contender Series. She won her UFC debut by a DQ victory because she got illegally upkicked. And then she UD'd Sam Hughes. And then she just defeated Michelle Waterson Gomez in a split. She'll be standing across from her most formidable opponent to date, Amanda Ribas, the 30-year-old, also fighting out of Brazil. 11-4 as a pro with 6 finishes, 4 of them knockouts. She's looking to hop right back into the win column after getting TKO'd by Macy Barber back in June of this year. I will go first. This is Brazilian on Brazilian violence. One of my favorite versions of MMA to watch. I think that Ribas is going to be a real heat check for Pinheiro. And I'm going to go with Ribas. I'm going to say Ribas takes it on the scorecards. Give me Ribas by UD upsetting the rising prospect in Pinheiro, handing her first loss since 2017. Omar, why don't you go?
I think this is a fight that needs to happen, especially in the division. But I think that Amanda Ribas, I think this is a bigger fight, I think, for her than it is for Luana Pinheiro. I think Amanda Ribas kind of needs to get back on track here with the momentum that she's kind of had up and down in the division. And I think Luana Pinheiro is trying to capitalize herself off of a name like Amanda Ribas. I think the thing that's impressive is the names that Pinheiro has already racked up in the short amount of time that she's been there, and Randa Marcos and Michelle Waterson Gomez. I think we know that there's, some of these women kind of have been towards the latter half of their career and haven't looked the same since the beginning, but they are still, big names in this division. And Pinheiro, I think, has looked pretty damn decent. Ribas's biggest issue, I think, is her inconsistency, and I think is her propensity to get hit. And I think that's where Pinheiro is going to potentially shine. So I'm going to go with Luana Pinheiro here. I think it's going to be a club and sub round 2.
For Pinheiro. Okay, Mark, give us those
All right.
odds.
Ribas is a pretty nice favorite. She's minus 250. Pinheiro is plus 200 as the underdog. Pinheiro is 1 inch taller, but Ribas has a 4-inch reach advantage.
Oh, Jesus.
And Amanda Ribas moves back down to 115, which was her original weight class, after a 3-fight foray up at 125. And I think it's the right move. Don't forget, this is a woman who owns wins over top girls at 115, like Virna Jandiroba and Mackenzie Dern. So she's well established in this division. And as solid as Luana Pinheiro has looked, whether you think she should have got that decision over Waterson or not, I don't think she's on the level of Amanda Ribas. I know I'm always saying this, but I really do rate Ribas pretty highly. She's skilled everywhere. Yes, she got finished by Macy Barber in her last fight, but again, that was up at 125. Macy's a much more powerful girl. Back down at 115 now, I think she gets back on the winning track. I considered going with a finish, but I'm going to say Ribas UD.
We have the same pick. Okay, moving on now to the lightweight division. Chase Hooper taking on Jordan Leavitt. So Chase the Dream Hooper. He's the 24-year-old out of Washington, USA. He's 12-3 with 1 draw, 4 knockouts, 5 submissions on his record, coming off of a UD over Nick Fiore back in May of this year. He'll be standing across from the Monkey King, Jordan Leavitt, the 28-year-old out of Las Vegas, Nevada. 11-2 as a pro with 2 knockouts and 6 submissions. I got to say, very nice piece of matchmaking here. Both guys very similar in many different ways, similar, close in age, very similar records, and similar methods of victory, both of them. Leavitt coming off of a TKO victory over Victor Martinez back in February of this year. Omar, go first.
You guys know I'm a big Jordan Leavitt fan. I think his skill set is very interesting. I think he relies obviously on the dexterity of his body and his legs. to kind of take advantage of the striking in that sense, but also to work his way on the ground as well. I think his ground game is pretty legit, and I think that makes this fight very interesting, especially somebody like like Chase Hooper, who also is very good on the ground, not so much on the feet. And I think for me, that's where I can't pick Chase Hooper for anything until I know that his hands are solid, and they are anything but from what I've seen in his recent performances. Jordan Leavitt isn't like a knockout artist by any stretch of the imagination. He recently had his first knockout win, I think, ever in anything. And he was super happy about it and stuff like that, but it doesn't lend much confidence to it potentially happening again. It seems like something that he wasn't even trying to do that just sort of happened. So I don't think this is going to be like a striking brawl, but I do think if it does stay on the feet, I think Jordan Leavitt probably has a little bit more of an advantage there. And I think if it goes down to the ground, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see Jordan Leavitt getting eaten up by Chase Hooper. So I'm going to go with Jordan Leavitt here. I think that he does have enough to get Chase Hooper out of there. I'm going to go with the second round KO.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that Leavitt is going to be overall stronger. He's the more compact guy. I'm sure Hooper's going to have a reach advantage as well as his height advantage. But to me, also, this is a very close fight. I had a hard time picking this fight, but I give the edge to Leavitt. I do think that he is also he's a submission threat, and Hooper obviously is baby Askren. But so I think Leavitt can handle himself on the ground, and I will say that he will have a slight advantage on the feet. So I'm going to say that he gets out. I'm boring tonight. I'm going to say UD for Leavitt. Mark?
So another one with some surprising odds, and they opened this way and have stayed this way pretty much the whole time. And it's that Chase Hooper is minus 220. Jordan Leavitt is plus 180. So I thought it'd be very tight. If anything, I thought Leavitt would be favored. I feel like he's the more proven of the two. But no. So measurables, 4 inches of height and 3 inches of reach for Chase Hooper. You knew he'd be the bigger guy here. I do think that Leavitt is the right style of fighter where Chase Hooper could potentially look good. I do like the way Chase looked in his debut at 155. It seemed like a better place for him. Obviously, his striking is still progressing, but I think we're seeing improvements. And I just don't know if Leavitt brings enough pressure and power on the feet to get Chase Hooper off him. Because one thing Chase Hooper is going to do is walk at you and bring volume. And then in the grappling, I feel like they're kind of a wash. Maybe we're going to learn that they're not.
Right.
So I've been flip-flopping on it, but I kind of think that the pressure of Hooper is what's swinging me. So I'll say it's close. I'll even say split decision, but I'm going to go Chase Hooper.
Okay. Okay, moving on to the co-main event of this UFC Fight Night in the welterweight division. Michael Morales taking on Jake the Celtic Kid Matthews. Morales, the undefeated 23-year-old prospect out of Ecuador, 15-0, like I said, undefeated, with 12 finishes, one of those submissions, and 11 of those are knockouts. He's been on a tear in the UFC thus far after winning on a Contender Series. He's now 3-0 under the UFC banner, 2 of them finishes. Most recently, he got a UD over the very tough vet, Max Griffin. This time, he'll be standing across from the very talented Jake Matthews, the Celtic Kid, the 29-year-old out of Victoria, Australia. His record stands at 19-6 heading into this Saturday with 8 submission victories. You can add another 5 knockout victories to that. Most recently, subbing Darius Flowers back in July of this year. I'll go first and just get this one out of the way. Michael Morales is an absolute phenom, especially being only 23 years old. As much as I think that Jake Matthews is going to be a great heat check for him at this point, I'm going to keep rolling with the Ecuadorian Michael Morales. Give me Michael Morales with another finish over a very talented guy in Jake Matthews. I'll go second round. I hope that we get the Jake Matthews that we saw in his fight against Andre Fialho. But either way, I'm gonna stick it with Morales. Mark?
So Morales is favored. He's minus 285. Jake Matthews is a plus 230 underdog. 1 inch of height and 7 inches of reach for Michael Morales.
Wow.
7
Jesus
inches of
Christ.
reach.
Wow.
And that is so much, and it is enough to swing me in a fight where I was
Yeah.
initially torn when I thought it through. I've always liked the game of Jake Matthews. He is extremely well-rounded, and I do think he's live here, especially in the grappling. I'd love to see him return to that here because he does have some nasty grappling that he has not necessarily gravitated toward as of late, and I think that is the advantage he could potentially push in this fight. But Michael Morales is very good. Obviously still undefeated. He's just as fast as Jake, if not faster. And the reach is enough to swing me, as I said. So as much as I think there might be a path for Jake, I just think that the reach combined with the speed and power of Morales is probably going to be too much because he carries he doesn't even have to put much into his shots, and you could tell his power is just huge coming from a natural place. So he could put Matthews out here. Obviously, that's what Mike went with. I'm going to say this fight looks a little bit more like the Semmelsberger fight, where it's like close in a lot of moments, but Matthews just gets cracked a few times, and that's what changes the fight. But I'll say he makes the bell, and I'll say it's a Morales UD.
Okay. Omar?
Fuck, I hate that, man. I want the best for Jake Matthews, but like I can't.
Dude, I know.
disagree
It
with
hurt
it.
me to do
I
it,
can't.
too.
Morales is a beast, man. He really is. The way he fights in there, the way he moves, the way he looks. I mean, there's specimen written fucking all over this guy.
He's 6'3".
He's
At
massive.
welterweight. That's big. That's very big.
It's massive. On top of, I didn't even realize the length.
Wait, you said he's
apparently.
6'3"?
That's what
Yeah.
Sherdog says.
Yeah, Sherdog says 6'3".
What did I look at when I said he was only 1 inch taller than Matthews? Because Matthews isn't that big.
Matthews is 5'11", it looks like.
Did I
What does
fucking
UFC say?
read? No, yeah.
No.
Tabology says Morales is 6 foot. Sherdog says he's 6'3".
Yeah.
What
That's
does
a big
UFC say?
discrepancy.
Let's see what
Wow.
UFC says. Keep going. Keep talking.
Sorry.
Well, I'm looking now because now I gotta find out. Now I need to know. Do they not have any of
UFC says 6 feet. So it might be Sherdog that's wrong.
Yeah, Sherdog might
Could
be full
be.
of shit. All right. Well, either
But
way,
anyway, the reach is still huge.
yes, yes. And the reality is that this isn't just some guy who just happens to have that kind of reach. He's a guy that's already been fucking people up.
Yep.
So I love Jake Matthews. I want to root for Jake Matthews. I want the best for Jake Matthews. I will probably be rooting for Jake Matthews, but I think Morales is going to win this fight. So give me Morales, unanimous decision.
Okay. Let's now advance on. We made it to the main event of UFC Fight Night. Allen versus Craig in the middleweight division. Brendan All-In Allen taking on Paul Bear Jew Craig. Brendan Allen, the 27-year-old out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He's 22-5 with 13 submission victories on his record. He's on a bit of a tear, riding a 5-fight win streak coming into this weekend. Most recently submitting Bruno Silva. By the way, in his 5-fight win streak, 4 out of the 5 have been submission victories. Most recently, that Bruno Silva one was in the very first round. He got a rear naked choke. He'll be standing across from another submission threat. This is why this fight is going to be so interesting. Paul Bear Jew Craig, the 35-year-old out of Coatbridge, Scotland, 17-6 with 1 draw and 13 wins by submission. Most recently, TKOing Andre Muniz back in July of this year. Bear in mind, Paul Craig has fought a lot of his career up at 205 and came down after back-to-back losses against Volkan Ozdemir, Johnny Walker, came down to 85 and TKO'd Andre Muniz and looked very, very good down at 185 pounds. A new entrant to the contest here at middleweight. And man, he looked good. I will go first.
You've been going
I will
first
say
a
that-
lot tonight. You're feeling confident over there.
I'm feeling it, man. Get my bad picks out of the way. This is a great fight on paper. These are both very talented guys. Both of them are huge, huge submission threats. Mark is going to be disappointed in me in this one. I'm going to go against his guy in Brendan Allen. I think Paul Craig continues to look very, very dangerous and very relevant now at middleweight. He gets a big win over the young gun Brendan Allen. I'll say TKO. I don't think he's going to get a submission over the submission artist in Brendan Allen. I'll say he's going to get a TKO in round 4. Omar, why don't you go?
Mark goes last. I kind of love this fight, to be honest. Paul Craig has kind of found his moment here at 185. It seems like had a great performance, obviously, against Andre Muniz. And I think against most people, I'd be picking Paul Craig to win. But Brendan Allen is a motherfucker. That's just a reality at this point. Very difficult for me to pick against Brendan Allen, even against a submission artist like Paul Craig, specifically because Brendan Allen's really goddamn good on the ground. And as good as Paul Craig is at catching dudes and being opportunistic on the ground, I just think Brendan Allen has more tools to win this fight and to stay safe. So I'm gonna go with Brendan Allen here, and I'm gonna be really bold here. I think he chokes out Paul Craig.
Wow.
Second
Stop
round.
it.
I know.
Wow.
I know.
So this is another one with really surprising odds to me. This card has had a lot of weird odds. Brendan Allen is minus 450. Paul Craig is plus 330 as the underdog.
Wow.
I don't understand how some of these are as wide as they are. And again, this one pretty much started this way from what I can see.
Wow.
Okay, so 1 inch of height and 1 inch of reach for Paul Craig. It's a great fight. I don't love it because I don't want to see either of these guys pick up an L right now. I think they're both really interesting at middleweight. As good as Brendan Allen is, and as you guys know, I'm a big believer in his skills. To finish Paul Craig is a pretty big ask, because is he going to find a sub on Paul Craig? Obviously, Omar thinks so, but not sure about that. And yes, some like big, huge knockout artists at light heavyweight have knocked Craig out, but I'm not sure Brendan Allen is quite that either. And if Allen can't finish him, as this fight goes on and it gets a little uglier and a little clinchier and a little grapplier, I think Paul Craig becomes very live in the late rounds to snatch something up on the mat, because that dude never stops coming. And he's going to try to push a pace too and wear Brendan Allen's cardio down as the fight goes on. So I am torn. As I said, I think the odds are insane. I think whatever the odds are on Craig to find a late finish, like finish in rounds 4 and 5, that type of bet is probably worth a sprinkle for whatever those odds are going to be with him being this big of a dog. But I am going to go with Brendan Allen. He's just a better overall fighter. His grappling is so damn good that you would think it should stack up just fine against Paul Craig's. He generally stuffs takedowns well. He reverses positions so well, and Craig can be prone to that. And he's the much more skilled striker. Not that he's some elite striker, because he's not, but he should still be a level or two above what Paul Craig is. So I just want to trust the better overall fighter to get things done. I could absolutely see it go the other way. And because I'm nervous about the later rounds, I'm going to say it gets finished, even though I don't 100% see that. But I'm going to say Brendan Allen, round 3 TKO.
Okay.
I like it.
And that is it.
And for the record, I love both these guys. I'm going to be sad for whoever loses. What'd you say, Mark?
Yeah, I wish they both got a shot at like an established top flight middleweight. I feel like they're both super interesting right now. I wish one didn't have to get turned back here.
It's true.